Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Most Excellent Adventure to
Heavy Metal
History.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the Heavy Metal History Podcast, my guest for this episode is Ethan McCarthy, the singer and I guess somewhat of a multi-instrumentalist of the band Primitive Man. Ethan, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. I'm stoked to get to talk to you about a myriad of things. The first thing I kind of usually like to start with is what is your heavy metal history? And what I mean by that is kind of like those records and bands that you remember hearing and finding out about that kind of got you into the genre.
Well, I've been listening to metal since I was real young, but the first things that I can remember really like, because I had an older brother that would play this shit in the house, so so I was exposed to it. So, like 2 years old or whatever. So I started to like it around kindergarten. I remember the first bands that I liked were, like Metallica, and Exodus and shit. And then as I started to kind of buy my own taste, this is like when Nirvana and stuff was around. So I was buying like Metallica stuff and some punk stuff and White Zombie shit and that kind of thing. And then when I got out of elementary school and into middle school, we were getting into Slayer and Cannibal Corpse and this shit. And then it just kind of continued to get heavier and heavier until now, where I'm still looking for the heaviest shit,
So you've always had a pretty eclectic taste as far as like music goes, in your interest.
Yeah, I love all other types. Yeah, I love all types of music. I just nothing will ever replace metal for me,
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too, man. Like I feel like, I get everybody has their taste and everything, but it seems like a lot of people write off bands because of a certain genre or certain thing that doesn't really. I don't know. I feel like I'm depriving myself of music if I do that. So I try to like listen to as much stuff as I can.
I don't X out any genres really.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything that I'm like, oh, I don't fuck with that. I mean, I guess like pop country. I don't really like that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, I mean, I'm weird about top 40, but even I can get into some stuff that's like massively popular. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of just try to find the gems of every genre,
Yeah, and I think every genre does have those gems, and it's just a matter of like finding them and looking for them, which is the fun part, at least with music discovery, in my opinion.
Absolutely. When you finally find something that's good, it's very rewarding.
Oh man, absolutely. That's kind of like, especially with metal nowadays, man. Like I feel like I listen to so much of it, and I don't want this to sound like a negative thing, but sometimes, man, it's just like, where is the good stuff gone? And I know it's here, and I think you guys are one of those bands that are up there in terms of like something an original, like has an original sound to it. But it just feels like it's getting harder and harder to find those bands these days. And maybe I'm just not looking hard enough anymore. I don't know, but I feel like I do a good job.
I wouldn't disagree with you on that. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody or anything at all.
Sure.
And I appreciate you saying that we have an original sound. It's very kind of you, and thank you for that. I find like that there are a lot of bands just trying to sound like their favorite bands instead of trying to take influence from their favorite bands and make their own sounds.
Yeah.
I feel like somewhere along the way it got really into like this band worship or that band worship. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You should just fucking learn from what they've done. So, it is hard. And when you do find really solid, original sounding bands, I mean, it's a game changer,
Yeah.
So, I think that there's just less of an emphasis on being a unique band and more of a, you should fit into this mold because that is what is cool. And I don't give a fuck if it's all kind of the same.
Well, I mean, the cool thing about you personally, man, you've been in like a ton of different sounding bands. I mean, from Withered to Vermin Womb to Primitive Man where you're at now, I mean, you've had like this long plethora career of like all these different sounds, and it feels like where you're at now with the band, you finally have kind of worked out the heaviest thing imaginable somehow. And, it's taken you years to kind of hone that in, but how did you kind of work towards that over the years with all those bands and then going into Primitive Man?
It's just always been my goal since I was a kid to be in the heaviest band of all time. Like, this is like very young, because when I was coming up, everyone was like, yeah, this is the heaviest band. No, this is the heaviest band. I'm like, fucking, I want to be in the heaviest band in the world. Like, it was always what I was saying, and I never lost that drive. So, I mean, even what we put out now, I'm like really excited to try and top that shit with whatever we write next. You know what I mean? I feel like you can always get heavier, and it's always something I strive for. When bands don't try to be the heaviest they can be, I get confused.
Do you think some of that comes down to a matter of like production or gear? Like where's the kind of line with trying to find heaviness, so to speak?
Well, so I feel like I've sounded as heavy as I can with no matter what gear I've had. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is, and engineers and shit like that help with recordings and stuff. I think, I don't know, I guess it's just like the kind of heart you put into it. Mm-hmm. Like there are bands that are really heavy, in quotes, like heavy bands or whatever. And there's just nothing raw about the shit.
Yeah.
And so I think that is like a common a thing too. And that's cool. Like if you're just playing heavy music because you like it and you're not trying to have like some sort of a catharsis with it and you're just trying to sound a specific way, that's cool. Much respect. I'm not trying to shit on people, but I think that the heaviest bands are the ones that are like projecting some dark shit.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely like a bunch of different things that kind of come together into it. And that's a good point you make right there.
Having good gear and good tone is very essential, but I've played through, cheap shit. I know how it goes. It's hard to get good gear. It took me until being 36 years old to have good amps. You know what I mean? I played on the same Mesa Boogie amps that I got on a deal for over a decade. Damn. So I just, like, even Primitive Man, our first, I think even Caustic has that Mesa on it. Yeah, dude, 2017. I didn't get amps that I had, like expensive and good amps until 2018. So, I think it's just like a combination of everything. But I do think that, so to answer your question fully, I think it's a combination of everything that you said. Uh-huh. But to me, the heaviest bands are the ones that are projecting some real raw emotion. That's what puts it over the edge of normal heavy. All of my favorite bands are the ones that are really laying themselves out there as honest as possible.
Yeah, and that's something you've been a big proponent about, it seems like, with kind of a lot of your lyrics and I guess messages within the records. What kind of stuff are you leaning towards with the new record? Because I'm assuming a lot of this stuff was written before the current state the world is in right now, but still it's not like things have been that great the past number of years anyways. So what kind of influences have you been drawing upon to kind of write and find that part of the music to add to that heaviness that you speak of?
So this record, and I did get to write about the state of things because we recorded the record in the middle of March, and so one of the songs I got to write lyrics about while the pandemic was popping off.
Shit.
So, which I feel bummed and lucky about.
Yeah.
Because I'm usually singing about shit that's like a couple of years old, but with this one's pretty recent. So, but other than the song Consumption, which was written during the beginning of the pandemic, all the rest of the songs are about confronting mental illness, confronting baggage that you carried around since you were young or however long you've had some heavy shit on your mind. It's about how I stepped away from the straight world to try to do art and music full time. And I was also a booking agent for this agency called Heavy Talent as well. So basically just stepping out of the comfort of having like a steady paycheck and doing a lot of touring and really leaning into that piece of who I am and how that can alienate you from your family and friends. You spend a lot of time away from people. So dealing with these personal issues like mental illness and all the things I mentioned along with that path is pretty much what Immersion is about. I had some personal issues, like some weird shit with like a stalker and a couple of death threats, and like all these other things.
Jesus.
That are kind of like have been thrown into there as well. 2019 was like really difficult for us as people. We lost family members and some friends, and like on top of trying to do everything that we were doing. So, it feels like the nightmare has just been continuing since last year. You know what I mean? That's it. It's kind of all of that stuff rolled into one. And because I was going through a lot of mental health stuff at the time, a lot of the lyrics are written through the eyes of that aspect of my personality. Mm-hmm. So it's like especially raw and vulnerable and manic and crazy, and I didn't censor any of it. So it's like I'm in a better place with that shit now, but sometimes it's hard. Like it was hard to sing all of those songs in the studio. I was like crying while I was doing some of it. The pandemic was popping off. Super difficult time period for all of us. And I touch on that too, how it's been hard for all three of us, because, we're doing these journeys together on tour. We did a lot of overseas shit. We can only rely on one another. We were spending like 180 days a year together,
Yeah. So
kind of rolling those guys into this as well. Just, like the record is called Immersion because I'm immersed in this world of issues and shit that we had going on, and I was just leaning into it, and so that's kind of it.
All right, there's a couple things I want to touch on with what you said, because you covered a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things to kind of extrapolate from that. The first thing you mentioned there with like, trying to put every fiber of your being into being creative and an artist and all these things that bring you happiness. Do you feel like once you started to kind of take that role on and do those things, you were starting to feel a little bit weight lifted off of you, or was it just a little too much of kind of dealing with that stigma, the people who didn't understand, that kind of weighed you down still with that?
It's a mix. It's a mix of things. You're free in one way that you weren't before, but you're chained in another way that's new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I identify with that a little bit, because I spent some time on the road myself, and it was always a weird thing where like I was trying to do all these things, and I would come home and people wouldn't understand what I was doing. My family still didn't understand. They don't to this day, but it's
oh fuck, dude! My mom still won't even acknowledge this motherfucking shit. I called her from Israel. When we played over there. That was like the first time that she's ever acknowledged what we were doing, and then later on got pissed off about our music videos. So I feel you.
Yeah, it's strange, man. Like being an artist has all these weird kind of things that normal people don't really realize or think about, and it may not seem like it makes a whole lot of sense to I guess a quote unquote normal person, but to like people like me and you, like it's all we live for the most part. I mean, it's what brings me a lot of satisfaction, man.
Absolutely, and I that's the thing. People are just like, if it's so fucking bad, do something else. I'm like, no, because this shouldn't in my blood. This is what I have to do. It's not a fucking game to me. People will like try to downplay and demean what you're doing by calling it a hobby, but I'm like, no, this is literally my life's blood. It's like what keeps me going every day. So that's like what The Lifer is about. It's like the first single that we dropped off the record is about that shit. Mm-hmm. I like lean into a little bit of like Robert Johnson lore and stuff, because he took like the a difficult path and made a deal with the devil. So I kind of wrapped that into the idea of choosing this direction instead of trying to remain in the straight world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's some people that it's a weekend thing and like a at home thing. And then there's other people that, or I should say, there's some people that it's a once in a while thing and they can take it or leave it and they can just accept it for what it is. And for me, it's like, no, I need this all the time.
Yeah, it's especially with what's going on right now. It's been an interesting time to kind of see how people are either embracing a lot of their artistic and creative sides now, you know, with like either not working or whatever's going on in their lives, or from what I've kind of seen on the opposite end of the spectrum is that people have too much time on their hands and they don't have anything they're passionate about, and that's partly why they're so angry and want to get out of the house, because they're fucking bored with themselves and don't have anything interesting to do. Yeah, it's kind of a weird dichotomy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've made a ton of noise stuff and tried to really occupy my time and all that shit. But, you know, on the same token, there's plenty of days where I just sit around getting fucking high all day and I don't do anything. and I feel, you know, antsy and upset and all that. You know, I do that shit too, but I'm lucky because I have this other thing. I have this thing to focus on. I've always had this thing, no matter what kind of shit is going on in my life. You know, you can only watch so much Netflix.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? You know, I can't imagine like being a single person with like no roommates and no hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that shit must be really fucking hard.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, like, I guess I kind of made that sound, like, more demeaning than I meant it to people that aren't creative, but it's like, one of those things that, like, you know, now's a good time to find something that you are passionate about and go do it. You know, don't sit around, don't waste this time that we have right now, even though the world is a fucking mess right now. It's just, I think it's a good time to try and find those things and put some creativity out into the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's all just about, it comes down to, like, having something to do. Mm-hmm. All of the shit that everyone does, watching movies, playing video games, and all that shit has a limited level of enjoyment, limited activity level. It's very like, it's just this thing where it's like being creative. You have a lot of, I guess, like options there.
Yeah.
And that might just be because I have a creative brain, and so it feels like that to me. You know, it's just I don't know. This is a big topic. You could talk for hours on this one.
Yeah, I know. It's overwhelming sometimes, man, because I'll think of like 5 projects I want to do, and then I'm like, okay, which one do I start with? And then I'll start like 3, and then maybe do like 2 or 1, and then think of 5 more, and then backbench those, and it's just like a ever-revolving door, man.
Yeah,
sometimes I'll get shit done.
Well, so that's kind of why. So I've been doing this thing called Many Blessings, which is like a noise and kind of a drone soundscape thing. And with that shit, you know, because it's only me, I'm like able to do whatever I want with it. Mm-hmm. So I use that outlet to kind of play around and do whatever. You know, with Primitive Man, it's like full bore darkness all the fucking time.
Yeah.
With Vermin Womb, it's just unhinged chaos all the time. You know, so with Many Blessings, I kind of try to occupy the ADD part of me, you know, and do whatever I want.
So do you think that, you know, with having other members in a band, it limits you in some respects? Is that, or is it just like having a project that's all your own that, you know, like it doesn't matter what you do kind of deal? No expectations, so to speak?
I mean, yes and no. Like, it's just that, like, everyone that I play with in my bands, we all have the same mission for that project. And to deviate from that is, like, not anything that anyone wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, but we all like different types of shit. There's stuff that I would do for Many Blessings that would just make 0 sense for what Primitive Man is. Same thing with Vermin Womb. You know, it's just like... And that might be because I like all other styles of music. So, you know, I'm trying to do shit over there with that. It's like staying within a range in those projects is by choice.
I think that's smart. There's been bands over the years that have like drastically switched up their sounds or added stuff that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, and then it alienates like a whole listener base, and it's always a fine line with doing stuff like that. So it's good that you're kind of aware that this thing that I have in my mind won't work for these two things or whatever else, and you're kind of just making it your own.
Right. Well, I think that with being creative, it's like even though I'm working within a specific confine or whatever, there's a lot of possibility within that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like everyone wanted Slayer to sound like Slayer.
Yeah.
I love that band Revenge. It's a controversial ass band, but I love that band. And every Revenge record sounds like Revenge. And I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted. Like, please keep that shit up.
Yeah, that's how I feel too, man.
But there's some bands also, but hold on though. But there's like bands like Neurosis has changed a lot over the years, but I love all of it. So
it's like a band by band basis. I can.
Yeah,
you make an excellent point there.
I'm trying to think of other bands though that have changed a lot that I still fuck with, and Neurosis is like the one that stands out. But I don't know, even like The Body, they put out weird ass records and extremely heavy records, but it's just like it's so damn good, it's acceptable. So really band by band, But for us, I just don't think that's something that we want to do, So depends. Like just depends, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm going to go a little bit ahead of myself, and I'm going to come back to something else I wanted to ask you about. But as far as Primitive Man and this new record, and even all the records of Primitive Man, there's something you guys do really well that I find the most interesting thing about the band is the way you use feedback as sort of like a songwriting aspect. And I've always been super curious how you incorporate the noise feedback part of it and have it sound good. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's just like part of how I've always played. I've always liked it. Like I've always liked having that shit in there. I remember when I was coming up and I figured out what kind of player I was going to be really early. So, I came up when I started getting into death metal and stuff, Slayer and all that shit. Me and my little friends were playing and learning how to play guitar and all this stuff together. And there's like one kind of guy who gets really sick at like solos and theory and precision and noise gates for guitar and shit. And then there's the other guy who's just like writing songs and being mad and kind of fucking doing whatever. And I went that route. No noise gate on my gear. I just need a distortion pedal or an amp with distortion. I don't give a shit. I like the feedback. I'm just going to keep doing that. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of how it was for me, like more of a songwriter and less of a technically skilled type cat, So I felt like feedback was just like a fun way to number one, to work with the gear I had, I think is probably part of it. And then I just kind of got used to having that be a part of my sound. Like every band I've ever been in has that kind of thing in it.
Yeah.
So it's just part of how I play at this point, And I could avoid it if I wanted.
Yeah. It would sound different.
But it because we're trying to be, that might be the extreme thing too, trying to be mad heavy. So feedback is harsh as fuck. So just keep it in there.
So when you're kind of trying to incorporate those elements into the songs, is it more of like a happy accident kind of thing, or is it kind of a little bit thought out as far as like where the feedback's going to go?
No, it's thought out. We know when we're going to use it now, especially for this record and playing together as a unit like this. Mm-hmm. It is most definitely thought of
Interesting.
when it's going to happen.
Yeah, okay. That's what I've been wondering for a long time, man. Because there's some parts in some of these songs where it's like, man, I can't imagine hearing that part of the song without the feedback. Like, it's such a good way to incorporate that element of the music. And the craziest thing is, like, you still manage to make that feedback sound extremely fucking heavy, which is the craziest thing to me. Because normally it's not a very heavy sound, if that makes sense. And man, you guys pulled off.
Thank you, man. Well, and I can't forget to mention that. So when I was like first starting to play guitar, I was like really into Jimi Hendrix, who's black dude, only real black dude to look up to at the time, and he's mixed too, like me, which I love all that shit. So I'm looking up to Jimi Hendrix, and I remember hearing stories about him, how he would control his feedback in a way that nobody knew how to do and shit. And I learned about that really young, so I can't forget about that part. I used to keep that in my mind, like that people would talk about him with that, like it was like a magical superpower. Yeah. And I was always really fascinated by that. So I also have to throw that in there. That is like some Hendrix ass shit. Too.
I mean, hey, that's not a bad guitar person to kind of mimic there, man. And especially for the limitations that he had back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, it's insane.
Fucking maniac.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Man,
I still love him.
Yeah, man. There's no denying, and it's the craziest thing. I was having a conversation probably about a month ago with my roommate and some friends, obviously about how young he died, and we were all thinking about our age, and we're like, holy fuck, we're older than him when he died, and we feel fairly young, sort of, but we're like, man, all that talent just gone at 27 years old. I mean, it's fucking insane how young he was.
Fucking bullshit. I hadn't even started thinking of man when I was 27.
Yeah, and I found out that I'm like the same age as Chris Farley was when he died, and I'm just like, what the fuck? He was only in his early 30s, and he died that young, and man, just the talent gone from the world. It's insane when you like kind of put that in perspective with your own age.
Gotta watch those hard drugs, man. That shit could be any of us who are playing with drugs.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta watch that shit. I stick to weed, man. That's it. Because I want to, I don't want to get caught up in that.
Yeah.
I've played around with drugs and stuff in my life, but I think a lot of it is that shit. You got to be careful. And, back then when he died, man, they were reckless, and there was less education about it. Cocaine was looked at like the same as it is with weed and shit. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
So it's just a shame.
Shame. I feel pretty lucky. I've never had any kind of like weird addictive thing with drugs. Mainly alcohol for a while, but I mean that's something I've moved past now, luckily. But yeah, it's man, it's such a crazy thing. So
but even then, man, I talk about how weed is all right, but there are people who just smoke weed and don't do shit. So you gotta be careful with that too. Man,
I can't do it because it makes my fucking I don't know. It gives me way too much anxiety, and I freak the fuck out on it, man. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work for everybody. I've been smoking it for 20 years every day, so.
Yep.
That's just kind of it probably hits a little different for me than it does for someone who does it once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, man, when I was younger, I could do it no problem. Like it's once I got past a certain age, it's like my mental roadblocks just kept fucking with me more and more, and it's like, well,
weed's
that was
too
fun.
good now. That's why. Shit's too good now.
It's probably why. Probably had shitty ass weed when I was a kid.
I mean, it was different when I was a kid. It's fucking weed is out of this world.
So another thing that you mentioned real quick that I want to touch on is, you were talking about having mental health issues. Do you feel like having this band and kind of putting maybe not all, but some of those issues into the music and, getting it out there in some way and being vulnerable, like you said, does that help with like a little bit of catharsis and working some of that stuff out part ways, or is it just like another outlet for you?
I mean, it works it out. I don't know. I've always been kind of a depressed person.
Mm-hmm.
And even angrier irrationally angry when I was younger. And so I guess for me, it is just kind of another outlet, and what is really helping me get over that shit or do better with it is just like getting older and looking at it and trying to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is neat.
So, I mean, yeah, no, not at all. This whole fucking record is about that shit. And so it's just like, I don't know that I'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Happy. Whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And, you know, after I write about something, it helps a little bit, but I don't know. I'll probably always have some fucking shit to complain about, you know? So.
I mean, hey, you know, complaining about some things is, I feel like it's all right. You know, you can't, like, beat yourself up too bad about that kind of stuff. I feel like everybody complains, man. I know I do all the time. About the dumbest shit.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I love it. Everybody does it. But just, you know, I was raised in the house where that shit was not, you know, it's just kind of like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean?
I mean, the thing, too, I feel like with mental health is, you know, and it seems like from talking to you, you know, you're at least aware of what's going on. You're not ignoring it. You're not trying to shove it down for the most part. You are actively trying to, you know, work on these things as much as you are able to. And that's like the other thing about mental health that people don't realize. Sometimes, man, it's just so overwhelming. Like, you don't know what the fuck to do or can do and even want to do about it. And that's like the hardest part about dealing with it, I think, at least in my experience and opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've been pushing shit down for years.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of, I hit a low point that I had to where I either had to address it or I was going to ruin every fucking relationship and every opportunity that I had. You know, Primitive Man almost broke up during this shit.
Really?
So, oh yeah, dude, this shit got super fucking dark. So, you know, I had to pull my shit together. And they helped me do it.
And that's good. Having those people there for you, man, is something you always have to, like, kind of remember. You know, those people that care about you enough to want to make sure everything works and stays good, and, you know, they help you out because they care about you.
Yeah, man, they're the best. I couldn't ask for a better group of people to play with. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, it seems like you guys are all... How long have you guys known each other, like, as far as the band and the members? Like, even if it was before Primitive Man, like, you guys have known each other for a long time, I assume?
I've known John forever. Like, I don't know, probably since, like, 2007 or 8, something like that. Joe, I've probably known since 2015 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, that's not true. Probably like 2012.
Nice. So you've definitely known the guys for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, Joe and I, like, you know, I've been close with John for a little bit longer. Joe and I really got to know each other while we've been playing together. And that's coming up on like 5 years now. But, you know, when you spend that much time with somebody, you're going to get to know their ass.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about this record a little bit more. Not to kind of not talk about mental health and oddly
no, I mean,
I'd
rather
change
talk about the record.
yeah, you know, I get you, man. I love, you know, talking about all kinds of things on here, but I do want to know more about this record too. So as far as like writing process goes, are you one of those guys that's like always working on stuff? Like as soon as you put out that last record, were you already ready to just like start going on this one? Or is it kind of like you need time to kind of work things out to start the new stuff?
Well, what would have happened is that we would have put this record out. We would have done a bunch of touring on it to where there's just like no time to write anything else. I'd have been trying to write songs with Vermin Womb whenever I was at home and not on the road with Primitive Man, and I'd have been focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I try to do it to where I'm only writing for one band at a time if I can.
Smart.
Yeah, because there's been instances where I'll be doing shit with bands at the same time, like confusing songs. It is a mess. So it's better for me to do it one at a time. But I mean, I can't, like, if it's not an option, that's okay. But I really prefer it. I can focus all that energy on live performance with one and all the writing energy in another. So that's what was supposed to happen. But because touring is not a thing,
yeah,
you know, Primitive Man we riffed on like two things. We saw each other for a second and had to move to spaces, and then we had to take photos. And so then we were like, well, we're already here. And we had, you know, everyone had been quarantining and all this. So we had one jam, and then we mostly just like played two riffs, put them together, recorded it, sat around and got high, and then we haven't seen each other since. Vermin Womb, everyone is like, the other two dudes, they work jobs where they're around people who don't give a fuck about masks all the time.
Uh-oh.
So because of that, you know, we're not getting together. You know, and that's kind of where I'm at. So everything I've been doing now that's new has just been many blessing stuff, because I can do all that by myself and I don't have to go anywhere to do that, you know. So, I mean, I'm always working on something, but it's just a shame it's not with the other guys more regularly, you know.
So as far as this record goes, when did you kind of start piecing it out and writing the stuff that would become it?
The end of 2017, and then a bulk of it was written in end of 2018, and even kind of through the beginning of 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I guess shortly after Toxic came out, because whenever we would be home in between tours, you know, we're on the road so much that we're just like, oh, well, we're not going to play the fucking set. Let's just write some stuff. And then what we would do is so then we'll just like, because we're out all the time. I mean, I'm playing these songs for days, months.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we'll do is we'll come home and we'll write stuff. And then a few days or a week before a tour starts, we'll rehearse the set once or twice, and then we're out. But we're really good at, I think because of all the on the road shit, we're like, it's easy for us to like hop back into the set, you know? So I'm lucky in that. I've never had a band like that didn't have to practice the set all the time. Like Vermin Womb has to practice the set all the fucking time.
Is it because of the different pace of the songs in Vermin Womb versus Primitive Man?
Yeah, so JP, the drummer, has to really like push his body to do that shit.
Oh,
I mean, he's blasting. I mean, he's blasting for like 40 fucking minutes, nonstop, and loud. Like, he's not like one of those dudes that's not loud. He is fucking loud, because him and I used to play in this thing called Clinging to the Trees and Forest Fire together for like a decade that nobody fucking liked, and we played in every fucking basement there was. So this dude is louder than shit. So, you know, he's out there trying to do it like that for 40 minutes. So it's like he has got to warm up and practice that shit before we write anything. You know, so that's the one advantage to this Doom shit. You know, Joe has to blast, but he's only blasting like 2 times in an hour. Or 3 times in an hour, you know.
So after you guys are done writing everything, do you demo any songs, or are you guys like kind of straight into the studio kind of band?
The only demoing we do is just like on our phones. We'll just record ourselves in the room, you know, and then everyone will listen to it, and then we'll go there again and we'll play it, and then we'll probably move on to something else, and then we'll go back and play the song that we just wrote before that, and take out anything that we think sucks or change anything if there is anything. And then they're pretty much ready to go when we get in the studio. There's no like changes in the studio or anything like that. We're not like doing a lot of pre-productions, kind of phone recordings and memory.
Oh, wow. It's pretty DIY, man. It's very rare that I hear that there's no like pre-production done. So that's pretty crazy.
I mean, I've just never been in I've always done it like this. I guess, you know what I mean? It's just always, like, I've been playing music pre-internet for everyone, you know, so I remember having like a shitty little, one of those like little tape recorders with the mic on the front to do this with my friends. Or like, I had like a Casio boombox that would record through a microphone.
Oh my goodness.
It was built in. You know, I've done it with those. Cassettes.
Cassette, yeah, that's definitely way old school. Holy shit. So
like all my first albums I bought were tapes. You know, like all of the shit that I bought growing up when I first started getting into music was fucking tapes. And I remember when CDs came out, and my dad got me the Nirvana Unplugged record and a boombox with a CD player in it. And, oh my god, I thought I was this shit.
Yeah, I was at the tail end of cassettes, man. I had like a little bit of half and half. Like I was kind of in the middle there. So like I started buying cassettes, and then CD came out, and then I went like full on into that, as most people did. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. Like I still own a couple cassettes, weirdly enough, that I've kind of gotten with like pre-order packages and stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this. I don't have a cassette player, so it just kind of sits around, takes up space.
You can get them in a pawn shop if you have a record player. Fucking just hook it up to the other part of the receiver. It's cool. I mean, I love tapes. I'm like looking at a shelf of tapes from shit that came out in the last 2 years right now that I've just gotten, and then some Godspell tapes. But
nice. Yeah, that's one of those things that's like, it's not making a huge comeback, but it is making a little bit of a comeback, much like vinyl has definitely resurged. But I've seen more bands include like cassettes as a pre-order item, or just, to buy, which is really cool because, I don't know, it's like a little novelty thing, but it definitely gives a different sound to the music, which is nice.
Well, and also it's like, if you don't have $20 for an LP or whatever, but you got 7, $10, you can still get the album, and there's a download in there and all that. It's not a bad deal. I mean, I'm partial to it because I started with it, and I remember my family listening to records, but I was so young I wasn't able to touch them, know. So it's like cool for me to be putting my music out on these things,
So a couple things here. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. As far as like recording process and stuff like that goes, who did you guys record with for this record, and how long did it take to kind of get everything done from start to finish, and how did you track it all out?
So we recorded with Ben Romsdahl at Juggernaut Audio. Ben played in that band Clean Industries of Forest Fire with me, just a little side history there.
Sick.
So and he hasn't really been playing in bands or anything the last few years, but he's been doing a lot of recording, and it is amazing what he does in this place. So it's our first time recording with him. Arthur Rizek mixed and mastered it after Ben got all the capture done. Studio is really nice. We got to be in the same room to record the drums and stuff, and we did all like that. There's a noise track on there that we all did live in the room together.
Oh wow!
And just stuff like that we weren't able to do in the past,
That's,
so it's cool. This was like the best studio experience we've probably ever had. I felt like I was in Led Zeppelin. It was so sick. I was like, and this, it's like this really big place. They had like rugs everywhere and shit, like really good vibe. I kept saying to him, I was like, dude, this is like some Led Zeppelin shit. I can't believe it. So.
That's awesome, man. Having that feeling, I can imagine just like, letting it kind of wash over you while you're in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, really into it. The pandemic is happening outside, but we're like in this recording fortress, just like trying to get through this record and shit. It was, one of the most unique experiences of my life. So for a really hard record to get to this point, to get through to, to get here where we're at.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is one of those things that like, because of all the strife and mental illness stuff and everything that you guys went through to get this thing done, do you feel like it makes for not that it would be a bad record, but do you feel like it makes for a better record in the long run, if that makes sense?
I don't know. I think we've written good records before my life was turning into a big pile of shit, completely at least. I think it's just, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of extreme fucking pain and anguish, getting better at writing songs together, getting better as a musician in general. And I don't know, I'm fucking seasoned with this shit now. I'm almost 40. You know, I'm not like a kid anymore, so I feel like that helps. If you're doing the same thing for a long time, you'd hope you'd get better at it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're playing, man, I feel like you always have to be improving. And I feel like there's no way you couldn't, even by accident.
I'm always striving to do better, always striving to have good ideas, always, I'll never stop striving for that shit. Like I know that, like, Primitive Man in the last couple of years has seen more success than anything that I've ever done.
Nice.
And I'm, like, really thankful for that, because I have done a lot of playing to nobody. But I don't think that I'm ever going to, like, lose that feeling like I got to do real fucking good and get better eternally. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great
like
mindset to have, man. Like, it's, you know, it propels, like, the music forward in making sure that, like, you always, you know where you came from, you know where you started, and how much it sucked, and to never get back there again, you always have to be doing better. So I think that's a great way to look at it.
Well, the other thing with this too is, you know, we're playing like larger capped rooms or whatever, and that shit is really fun and all that shit. But, you know, Primitive Man still plays in basements and shit.
Yeah.
We played to nobody in Omaha last year. You know, like we're still a DIY like band that comes from underground punk and metal at heart, and that shit is forever. Especially because of how we sound. Like, for me to not acknowledge where we come from would be dumb as shit.
It's good to look at it that way, man. I mean, you know, I think there's some bands that are bigger that probably kind of lost sight of that. I mean, that happens, you know, but yeah, it's case by case basis, I feel like. But yeah.
And I do shows for bands too. Like I put on shows here in Denver and, like, bring smaller bands through and stuff. I'm, like, still really connected to that community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that shit is important to me. Like without DIY, I would have nothing. Like, if I wouldn't have started there, I wouldn't have gotten where I'm at now.
So, all right, this brings up an idea I just had. We'll do this real quick, and then I just got one more thing to ask, and then I will let you go. Hopefully, it won't take too much longer. So you talking about playing, like, kind of to nobody and, like, bad venues. Tell me what's one of the worst venues and shows you've played, and I will tell you one that I experienced as well, because I feel like we probably have some good story exchange here with this.
With Primitive Man?
Any band, you know, any band you've been in.
Man, asking me to pick.
All right, let's go with Primitive Man, since that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay. I mean, oh man, I gotta think about.
Yeah, don't worry about dead air or anything. Like, I can edit kind of stuff out for time if you gotta take a sec.
Well, the thing is I'm trying to think of, like, so it's like I have one that I would tell, but I still can talk to the person that threw the show, and they're very nice. I don't want to talk shit on the place that they put us at, but it was a fucking shithole. And I'm thinking about telling a story. I mean, I got a story that, like, is kind of funny. Okay, so, you know, there's this famous German squat called Kopi, and it's like this giant fucking apartment complex full of punks. And it's like a giant squatter of paradise.
Okay.
You walk in there, and it's famous. This place is cool, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like if you come from punk and you play DIY shit and all this, you walk in there, you're like, oh my god, it's like punk heaven, punk paradise, free town, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's fucking filthy. So you get in there, and you know I played there one time before. I filled in on bass for that band Catheter, a grindcore band, and I did a European tour with them, and I'd been there before. And so I kind of knew what I was in for, but it was still pretty fucked. So Primitive Man gets there, and this really beautiful dog is like running around out there. Dude's like, one guy's like welding bikes together to make Paul bikes in the corner.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and like, you know, this dog is running around picking up metal parts and asking you to play with it, but it's like, you know, that shit's gonna fuck up their teeth, so you don't want to play with these metal parts with the dog.
Yep.
But the dog like really wants to hang out, and you're just like feeling bad for the dogs. Whose dog is this? Like, what in the fuck is going on? Why is anyone stopping this dog from playing with metal pieces? So then we get in there, and you have to load your gear down this really narrow ass staircase. And, you know, me and John were big dudes, and the staircase is rickety as fuck.
Oh, man.
And, you know, you get your shit down there, and then all of the ground is just covered in fucking broken beer bottle glass.
Oh.
And they're like sweeping it up in quotes.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not much.
They're all hammered at like 3:00 in the afternoon. They're like sweeping up fucking the glass, but there's still like little tiny shards of glass everywhere, and it's wet from gross stale beer. There's no ventilation in there, so it's just like smells like mold and beer and sucks.
Ugh.
And so we set up and get ready because the bands are sharing a back line. I'm trying to think of who we were on tour with. I think we were on tour with that grindcore band Wake.
Okay.
From Canada. Great band. Anyway, so we set up our stuff. And they're hanging out, and we go to play. And at the time, it was a different lineup. It was me, John, and this drummer who played on that record, Almost Where the Hatred Is. His name is Spy. And so at the time, there was nobody white in the band. And Kopi is like this, you know, anarchist crust punk place, and posters about being anti-racism and like all this fucking shit. So this dude that we were playing with has like a geometric shape tattoo on his throat.
Uh-huh.
And we play, and it's all good, and we have a pretty decent time and shit. And then someone in the crowd like starts talking shit about us that our drummer has a racist tattoo. This motherfucker's black and Puerto Rican, all right? So the Germans are like getting really upset.
Oh my goodness.
About it, and they like call the guy that booked the tour, and we have to like talk to them, and they're like, he needs to put his for the rest of the tour he cannot play without a shirt because it will cause problems in Germany. And so I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Because Primitive Man is not as the anti. Get the fuck out of here, man. So I am like pissed off about this shit. I'm trying to get our shit packed up and wrapping up my cords or whatever, and then my hand just gets sliced open by the fucking glass that's stuck to my cables. I'm having to deal with this fucking nightmare about the fucking tattoo, and then I go upstairs and there's like some like poster in the kitchen where we're supposed to eat of like a jigaboo drawn black person with a can of spinach in their hands, and it says like anti-racism or something. And so then that shit fucking pisses me off.
Wow.
And they're chiding us, people of color, about this shit when they got shit like this in their kitchen. And it was like an absolute fucking nightmare. So then So this story ends there. We leave, and it just fucking sucks. We barely get paid shit. This is like fucking regular ass trash. The place where I stayed there before, and the place where they wanted us to stay, when I stayed there with Catherine there like a few years earlier, I remember I woke up that morning and opened my eyes and realized I was sleeping on a bloody mattress.
Oh, good God.
And Yeah, and it's like one of those fucking holes in the ground to piss and shit, and like all of this kind of game. So yeah, that's one of the worst places and one of the worst shows I've ever played. And fast forward a couple of years later, those people at Kopi were so fucking pissed about this dude's tattoo that they banned us from the venue, and also banned us because there's a profile, or no, I'm sorry, a press photo that Primitive Man took where I have like a Gucci Mane T-shirt that says "Burzum" on it, and you know, it had in like the Burzum font, but it says Lord of the Trap on it, and it's just like Gucci Mane in like contrast now, like really funny shit.
Yeah,
and they saw that photo, and with that story tried to get us banned in other venues, and said that like Primitive Man is a fascist band, and didn't bother to take note of any of the things that would automatically disprove that. So yeah, that's my story with that shit. I have many more where that came from.
That's excessive, man. I can't believe they didn't just take the time to like have any kind of dialogue with you whatsoever, or even look closer at the dude's tattoo. I mean, come on. That's insane.
The thing of it is that I remember saying to them, I was just like, look, man, like, and it's not even a swastika, my friend. Like, you gotta understand.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not like he had a fucking Swazi tattoo, you know. It was some shit that you would only know about if you paid attention. And I remember I said to this guy, look, man, I don't subscribe to White Supremacist Monthly. I have no idea what the fuck is going on with those people.
Yep.
I don't want to know. And, you know, this is years ago. Now I do want to know, so they stay the fuck away from me. But, you know, back then you just stayed away. You stayed away from it. It wasn't so mainstream.
God, man. Yeah, it's that simple.
White supremacy wasn't so mainstream, so you stayed away from it. You didn't need to know about it because it was not mainstream. Jesus Christ.
All right, I'll run through mine real quick so I don't take up a ton of time. But basically, we
you're
played...
all right, man. I got some.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I usually, like, there's, like, a time limit on these things, and it's, like, I'm always rushing to, like, get through it. Okay, so we played this barbecue restaurant. I'm pretty sure it was in Southern California-ish. Forget the name of it. We didn't know it was a restaurant when we showed up. We thought that it was just, like, a bar kind of place. So we all get there. Everybody's loading in, and we're
what
like...
What state is this?
California.
Where is this? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was Southern California or somewhere around there. I'd have to look, but I don't know where it's at. So we're all starting to load stuff in, and we're like fully realizing like it's just a restaurant with a stage somewhere in the back, and we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, how are we gonna play a death metal show here in a restaurant where there are people eating, and like, you know, kids will get a little rambunctious, so want to circle pit and slam dance and hardcore dance and all that shit. And so we're loading in, and I don't think the owner has any idea what's going on, because it becomes more and more apparent that the show's not going to happen. And we're like, well, fuck, like, what are we just going to leave? Like, we're going to try and play the show. So it came down to, he cut most of the bands, and then only the headlining band that I was touring with was going to play their set, and that was it. And then I guess something happened where he didn't want to pay the amount that was promised, and he didn't want to give us any food, and it just kept turning into this big deal of like, well, then we're not going to play at all. And then he was like, well, you signed this contract, you have to play. And it almost came down to like a fight, like a real fight out in the parking lot. There was a lot of screaming going on back and forth. I think we loaded in and out gear like 2 or 3 fucking times, because it was like, hey, the show's back on. Nope, actually, we're not playing. Hey, this is back on. And it was just like this constant back and forth. And then after the...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, dude, it was insane. And after like the almost fight, that was when it was done. Like, we just packed everything up and just fucking left with our tail between our legs, all fucking angry. This was like the worst venue on that whole little run, and it wasn't even a long run. It was supposed to be like a mini tour, like a little 2-week tour. I don't know how it got booked. Something got lost in the translation there, but man, almost playing a barbecue restaurant is fucking insane.
Well, let me tell you about the time I played a Mexican food restaurant with Weed Eater and Primitive Man.
Okay.
Done that. I've seen people eat Mexican food, and I think it's like Manitoba or something while we were playing. Winnipeg, I think maybe might have been in Winnipeg or somewhere weird like Regina. I can't remember. So, Weed Eater and took us on tour one time, and we played a Mexican restaurant with them. It was pretty funny. I've also played there. There was this festival called One Fest in Dallas for a little bit, and their first year they had us at a Mexican restaurant, but the show was fucking sick.
Yeah, it's always weird there because like we've also played other restaurants. We used to play this place called Ray's Golden Lion. And
oh my man, I have played
at
Ray's. Did what band were you in?
I toured with a band called Carnifex.
Oh, word up! All right, so did those kids in the Drip set your show up?
In the what?
The Drip. You ever hear that grindcore band?
Yeah, I've heard of them. I don't know. This was probably like a solid 10 years ago, so I don't know if.
Oh yeah, I know. They were around back then.
Okay.
I wonder if Bobby Johnson might have been the person that put that show together. So I played Rays a few times with Clinging because of those kids up there, like real small seats. So I know all about the Golden Lion.
Yeah, it surprised us every time we played there, man. It would be pretty packed out. We're like, damn, all right, this is quite an interesting little thing they got going for them. But nice little restaurant venue stories there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite to play in a restaurant, but I'm not above it.
Yeah,
I'll do it, but I'd rather not.
Yeah, you got to play where you got to play sometimes, man. It's all about getting out there. All right, so the last thing I want to know about, because you mentioned it a few times, and maybe I just misheard information, but I was under the impression that Vermin Womb is no more, but it seems like that's not true. There is going to be more Vermin Womb coming? ?
Yeah. So we broke up, and shit got all fucked up or whatever, and then just a bunch of rebirth, and then we had a little lineup change, and we played Blood Incantation's record release last winter.
Oh, wow. And
had a lot of fun, and I don't know. So then I was just like, well, the two people that do still get along can just keep playing. So that's what we're doing. So we got a new bass player. So
sick. Well, that's good news, man. Yeah. I always love that band. So that's sick. I'm looking forward to whenever that stuff may come out.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. We had 5 songs written, but then the pandemic kind of fucked that up.
Yeah. It seems like. Actually, did the pandemic have anything to do with like making the release schedule for this weird, or did you have to push it up or push it back because of everything?
No, this is right on schedule. It's fucking.
Oh, cool. Well, that's good. At least that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit scared about it. I felt guilty having a record come out during these. What are they calling it? These unprecedented times. But I had some bands I really like put out some stuff, and it's been helping me get through. So I said, "Oh, fuck it." I mean, hopefully it helps people get through. They have something to listen to.
I mean, yeah, that's how I've felt, man. It's like, hell yeah, I can't. I mean, I've already been jamming it for the past week or so since they sent me the review copy. But goddamn. That's what I would like to end this on. I just want to say congratulations once again for making the heaviest fucking record in existence. I mean, it's insane how you guys pull that off, man. It's fucking awesome. So
thank you, man.
Yeah. So where can everybody buy it? That's I guess the important thing, or however it gets money in your guys' pockets. Merch, whatever works.
Just getting it from Relapse is probably the best way. We don't have any right now because we're not going on tour, so we're not like selling anything through our website or anything. So just get them from Relapse so that they want to continue to put out Primitive Man records.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they do.
Yeah, me too. They're awesome. I mean, I hope so too. But man, I also want them to sell them.
Yeah, yeah. It's such an important thing nowadays, man.
Yeah, well, especially now when no one's not doing shit. Buy records.
Yeah, got to put that stimulus money out there somehow, right?
Shit, I guess.
Bribe money is more like it.
Fucking shit's a joke. We better be getting another check quick. People,
God,
about
man.
a couple of weeks, it's going to be hard out there.
Yep. I feel it, man. It's going to be an interesting time here in the next few weeks. See what happens.
Man, I hope we all make it out alive on this shit. I tell you that. Work too hard to not make it out alive from this shit.
Yeah, that's what I hope, man. It's whatever happens, we all come out of the other end of it like better somehow. But who the fuck knows?
Mm-hmm. Who the fuck knows?
Well, shit, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and chat with me about the record and everything involved in it. You've been like one of my bucket list guests for a long time, so it's fun to finally get you on the podcast, man.
Oh, man, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time and caring about what we're doing. It's really nice of you, So, I don't know. Be well. I hope everything goes all right.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Be excellent to each other. And